This one is really heavy, honestly.
Yeah.
It's Reece Richards.
Huh?
I mean, you probably know him. He's that funny guy from
Yeah.
Sex Education on Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
And just recently, he was in Hairspray on the West End.
Wow.
But he got into like a really bad situation with the police in London.
Yeah.
It's making a lot of people ask some really serious questions,
Yeah.
you know, about racial profiling.
Of course.
And like how the police act, especially when things get really tense. I mean, you've got this young actor.
Yeah.
He's known for making everyone laugh.
Exactly.
And then boom, he's in the middle of this huge incident.
Huge, yeah.
And it could have some really big consequences.
Absolutely.
So we've got Richard's own story about it on his Instagram. He's saying that the police arrested him and hurt him for no reason.
Wow.
And then on top of that, we have what the Metropolitan Police are saying officially.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Independent Office for Police Conduct,
Okay.
the IOPC.
IOPC.
So what we're going to do today is really deep dive into all of this stuff, all these different sources,
Yeah.
and see what we can figure out.
I think having all those different sides of the story is really important. It helps us to get the full picture as much as we can anyway.
It does. So let's just start with what Richards himself is saying, okay?
Yeah.
So he's saying he was walking home,
Yeah.
saw a car crash, and two guys ran away from it.
Okay.
And then the police showed up,
Yeah.
and he pointed the guys out.
Uh-huh.
But then, he says, that's when things got really, really bad.
And he really gets into the details in his account.
Yeah.
He says the officers pepper sprayed him, threw him down on the ground, and even kicked him.
And he's using that term racial profiling,
Yeah.
which is a really serious accusation.
It is. And I think to really get a sense of how much this affected him,
Yeah.
we need to hear it straight from him. In his Instagram post, he says, "In a flash, I was face down on the pavement,
Wow.
with multiple officers holding me down, forcing my head into the ground." I mean, imagine being held down like that. You can't move. Yeah.
And they're forcing your head into the pavement.
It's scary.
And then he goes on, he says he could hear his mother there too,
Oh, gosh.
screaming and crying, begging them to let me go.
I mean, think about seeing that as a parent.
Oh,
Your child being treated like that.
yeah. You're completely helpless.
It just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And at the end of the post, he says that feeling of helplessness will never leave me.
Wow.
The whole experience was embarrassing, deeply upsetting, and exhausting. It makes you wonder about the long-term impact. Like, how does something like this mess with your head?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's trauma, right?
Yeah.
That can really stick with you, affect you mentally and emotionally.
Hmm?
But we have to look at the other side of things, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the Met Police are saying something different.
Okay.
They say they were after a stolen car, and it had fake plates on it.
Interesting.
That's why they even ended up talking to Richards in the first place.
Well, wait a minute. If they were going after a stolen car,
Yeah.
that's like an emergency, right?
It is.
Could that be why the officers maybe messed up?
Yeah. Or is there something else going on? I mean, that's what the investigation's for,
Right.
to figure out if what the officers did was okay, given the situation, or if they went too far. You have to look at everything, right? The whole situation.
Mhm.
And the specific things that each officer did. Like, the Met Police are admitting they used pepper spray
Okay.
during the arrest.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And they've passed the whole thing on to their director of professional standards.
Oh, so that's their, like, internal affairs.
Yeah, exactly. They look into complaints against officers.
Okay.
And then on top of all that, you've got the IOPC doing their own thing.
Right.
An independent investigation. This could really change how we see police behavior
Yeah.
and hold them accountable, not just in this case,
Right.
but in general.
And they're saying that one officer is being investigated for possibly assaulting Richards.
Yeah.
And for gross misconduct. That's really serious, right?
It is. He could go to jail.
Wow. And there's another officer they're looking into for misconduct.
Okay.
That could mean he gets disciplined.
But that's not as bad.
No, not as bad as criminal charges.
So just because there are these investigations,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean for sure that anything will happen to the officers.
You know, you're right. They're still gathering evidence,
Yeah.
trying to get the facts straight.
Okay.
That's what the IOPC does. They're independent,
Yeah.
so they can keep an eye on things
Right.
and make sure that these serious complaints against the police are looked into properly and fairly.
I see.
It helps people trust the system.
Makes sense. So we've looked at everything.
We have.
What's the situation now? We've got Reece Richards, and he's obviously really messed up by this whole thing.
Yeah.
He's sure it was racial profiling.
Yeah.
And then we've got the police saying they were just doing their job.
Right. Responding to that stolen vehicle.
And they're saying they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. Sticking to that.
And the IOPC investigations are going to be really important
Oh, yeah, they're key.
for finding out what really happened.
Absolutely. But we have to think about the bigger picture, too, you know? This
Right.
isn't just some random thing that happened.
Yeah.
Studies show that Black people in London are 4 times more likely to be stopped and searched by the police
Really?
than white people. It's a huge problem.
Wow.
And it raises serious questions about bias in the police.
It does. So what do we learn from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we need to keep talking about race and policing
Yeah.
and actually do something about it.
Yeah.
What happens with the IOPC investigations will be important,
Uh-huh.
but this is bigger than just those officers involved.
You've given us so much to think about.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, how will this incident and the investigations change how we talk about race and policing? Not just in London,
Yeah,
but everywhere in the world. It's a question we all need to consider.
absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Fern.